Guys, it's Jacob from Stringbuzz here, stringbuzzworld.org being a music journalism site, links are in the description down below. And we have a brand new song review for you today, and it's the latest by Cold War Kids, and that is Love is Mystical. So I'm going to refer to the original article as I usually do for these videos, so I hope you enjoy. So outside of their major hits a couple years back, about 5 to 10 years back at this point, it's fair to say that I've never really followed Cold War Kids that closely or anything like that. Not because I don't like them or anything, but rather the fact that they've just sort of slipped off my radar fairly recently and fairly often as well, which is purely situational. So anyways, you're not here for any of that. You're here to think, or rather to hear what I think of this latest track. So shall we just dive into it? Well, I thought it was fairly decent, and it had one or two significant moments in it. I thought the vocal performance was varied and refined. I thought some of the progressions were fairly catchy as well as memorable, and I think the song on the whole is a fairly above average indie/alternative track. I mean, it's far from perfect, and there are some issues I do have with it, but for the most part I enjoyed what they presented around me. Will say that the production on this thing is a little bit shaky, or rather on the shaky end, especially for a 2017 production cycle. I don't know what was meant to be covering the mid-ground, but it seemed to take centre stage, and now that's not really a bad thing. I've never had problems with that in the past, but the low end just felt fairly skimpy and sort of, I don't know, redundant to the whole mix. That might be down to a lack of depth in the kick drum, or even that the bass just didn't have that desired wholesomeness which you'd look for in this type of track. Also, the vocal effect grew a little tiresome towards the end, and I think choosing to carry an entire song with this trebly slapback EQ was perhaps a bit of a brash decision. It's not really made for an entire song. They've used it quite a few times as well on the bigger tracks I've heard them use in the past, and yeah, it's just not my sort of thing. Now that might be just a personal preference, as I've never really taken to that EQ even with other groups, but it just wasn't for me really. I did like how the percussive nature of the piano was kept though, and it was refreshing to hear a piano that wasn't ridiculously soft. We've had so many of them in pop tracks recently, so yeah, I guess that point was refreshing. Musicality-wise, the song does explore some exciting avenues. I thought the central progression was catchy and the piano performance was memorable, which is always a good thing. I thought the vocal hook was also catchy and slightly more developed than your average indie hook, which is a good thing in the modern climate, especially at the moment. Indie's sort of taken a bit of a nosedive fairly recently. It's a bit quieter than a lot of the other genres, which are quite big at the moment, which is strange because last year it looked like it was really building towards something. And I think the instrumentation on this track, getting back to the point, created a very raw and retro texture that sounded like an honourable throwback to the golden generation of alternative music. I'm talking like Elvis Costello years, you know, really going back. I think this song perhaps lacked diversity in the progressions though, and the bridge was a real letdown for me, as I was expecting more of a build up towards that final chorus just to really blow me away. I like some development in my bridge, and we didn't really get that here. It's a bit of a yin and yang situation. I will say that the good does outweigh the bad, but there are some little songwriting and production decisions that perhaps I would have personally done differently. Lyrically, the track is solid, and Cold War Kids clearly know how to flesh out a concept at this point, making their track's message poignant and instantly admirable. So all in all, a fairly decent track, and one I would definitely recommend to fans of the group. Although I think there are better songs to introduce new people to the band, like casual listeners and etc, etc. I think this one is more of just like an easy to listen to, fun, modern indie track by a group, which I think you're going to get more enjoyment from this song if you're already a fan of them. So I give it a G rating of 6 out of 10, which is above average. If you like this video, then please leave a like, subscribe to see more, and I'll see you around next time. Bye bye.